Welcome back to Sunrise. Well, Mr. Yakub, apologies there. You could go ahead and let's talk about what kind of steps should we be taking now to remedy this situation.
You mean the situation in terms of liquidity in market?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I think CBN, the governor has definitely said they're going to keep a tab on the issue of liquidity to try to mop up excess liquidity in the market to reduce our possibility of going into another session of devaluation and probably recession. But the reality of it is that you cannot just talk about mopping up liquidity without attacking the issues that fundamentally affect liquidity. When you put liquidity in the market, and there are no access to that particular liquidity in the market by the people, either because they have something to do or the ability to get money to their pocket, what you end up with is liquidity in the market in excess, but very few people will have access to it. Not everyone will have. And that is the fundamental problem of Nigeria. The fact that Nigeria at the moment, the health of it is determined to a large degree by the performance of the economy. And the performance of the economy, its people, the ability for its people to be able to contribute positively, which opportunities are not there at the moment, then you have a fundamental problem. So if you mop up liquidity, you will tighten up the supply of money, but that does not mean that you can actually bring in the necessary equipment into the hardware into the country in order to resurrect the things that would drive the economy of production in the country, such as the textile industry or other manufacturing industries. So these are things. So, but social services, financial services, social services, and those kind of areas, service industry will enjoy what is happening right now, but definitely production is a problem. And so we find ourselves in this cycle where there is no place to get employment, and you want the economy to go forward. So you might mop up liquidity, but it will end up with only few people benefiting.
You know, the problem here now has to do with the slow growth, which is of immense concern to Nigerians as well as the CBN. But you recall also in 2013, about 220 billion naira was released for the small, medium enterprise sector. And but a whole lot of issue is being addressed. It's not being addressed now. We're talking about the small-time businesses like even the barber, the vulcanizer, and even the physically challenged person out there. These are the individuals who try to fill in the gap. Let's look at their importance in helping us drive this economy so that when the CBN comes with this warning, we can see how well these people can plug the gaps and the loopholes to making us grow the way we would want to see.
Well, the private informal sector, as we refer to them, basically drives the economy of this country. Just like you have said, sir, think of the woman that fries bole on the street. At the end of the day, during your lunchtime, that's your easy lunch. Think of the person that does your tires. These are the people that drive the economy, the small-scale farmers. These are the people that drive the economy. But the challenge with it is that these are people who do not have access to finance. They don't have access to finance. I believe that is what CBN meant to address, and they are trying to address in that 220 billion. Now, when they came out with that, one of the problems they had was the issue of trust. If we're going to release this money, can we get people to pay it back? Because the general psyche of Nigeria is that anything government is free. And it ties in not only in terms of those kind of small businesses, but even in issue of employment. Government has got no business creating employment. What government should do is to create an enabling environment for people to create jobs for people. And these are the issues that micro, small, medium enterprises fund was meant to stimulate growth at the same time and bring employment, especially in this private informal sector. And in that particular sector, it is expected that if you are lent about 50,000, you should be able to employ another person. Even if it is another akara joint, you should be able to employ another person. That would have tackled a lot of problems of unemployment. What then happened was the CBN provided guidelines that, in my view, and until we had a discussion this year with the then Minister for National Planning, in my view, it was overlaying a micro-lending with commercial principles. How do they expect someone who has got the equity or asset of 10,000 to go and put down that 10,000 as 50% contribution or collateral in order to get 20,000? We argued that this year, and it was the genesis of what came about as a bottom-up approach, where cooperatives from their clusters and their primary societies can go up to CBN through microfinance and non-commercial banks. At the moment that I speak with you, there are well over 1 million corporators, individuals that are truly verified enterprises with their registration details, including bank accounts, that have got applications with the CBN, and that fund has not been released. Yet you see some state governors have gotten the money and misused it during the political process, and therefore the economy is not being stimulated. And these are fundamental to the economy of this country. 70% of this country of the economy of this country is driven by this sector. And therefore, CBN in its strategy must be seen to be ready to really support these people at the grassroots from the bottom up, rather than from the top down that they were implementing in 2013 and early 2014.
Because you see, sorry, Marco, because you see the concern here would seem as if it's always beamed towards the big businesses, talking about forex restriction, which doesn't really necessarily affect the small businesses we've just highlighted. But again, we can't take away the big businesses out of the picture. How can both of them, how can we have a synergy between growing or having an enabling environment for the big businesses as well as the small medium enterprise?
The challenge with big businesses is that it involves a lot of money. Such money as it doesn't really make sense even to the person at the grassroots because it's too big for them to think about. Nigeria by nature, and one of the reasons why we managed to survive this far, is because we are a cash economy. And the cash economy means that my old woman in the village, mother in the village, can take her 10,000, put it under her pillow. Tomorrow morning she's sure it's there and she can go and spend it. The big business doesn't want to know about her. And to a large degree in Nigeria, a lot of the policies of government over the years have supported big businesses to the detriment of smaller businesses. You know, this oil thing that came about is one of the greatest problems we have had, because a lot of those things that would help the people at the grassroots to link up with big businesses. Think in those days, when we first started Nigeria, you discover in the West you have the cocoa house. Thousands of people were employed, cocoa business. In the East, you had the coal. In the Midwest, you had the palm and rubber. In the North, you had granite pyramid. All of those people were contributions from the people at the grassroots, but yet it linked up with big businesses that were there to export and import the things that we require in order to drive these industries. So it is also with textiles. So you can have big businesses driven by the people at the bottom, but it should be done in such a way that government should be able to deliberately support these people, which is the non-oil sector, to be able to drive that economy and link it up properly. At the moment, there's a disjoint.
How seriously are you taking the warning of the CBN that Nigeria might move into a recession if we don't do anything about sectorial growth?
Of course it is. It is fundamental, because the thing is that oil prices is dwindling. At a different space, I had warned when we were analyzing the issue of budget at one point that there is no way we could pitch the budget of this year on $65 per barrel. The most realistic is about 53, and I think that is where we are, and it's still coming down. We have also said at that point that there is a fundamental requirement for us to have a deliberate effort towards the non-oil sector, not only in terms of policy, but in terms of actions. We had a fundamental challenge before, and that challenge was that we had a ministry that had both the policy implementation oversight, including checks and balances in one ministry, and therefore we got it wrong. I believe the time has come for the president to take its responsibility of driving the issues of the economy. And if you are going to deal with anti-corruption issues, the next thing you have to deal with is unemployment issues, and you need to really drive those processes in concurrently. So I believe that CBN is saying the right thing, but I believe also there must be very deliberate effort. If not truly, we're already to some extent in recession. But we are going to get further into recession. The reason is this, is that inflation is high. Unemployment is very high, especially youth unemployment. And anytime you find unemployment being unacceptably high, about 29, 30, about the highest in the world. I don't accept the 6.4 because they exclude housewives, which they assumed at that point that they are not supposed to be employed. Anytime you have unemployment that high, that means the health of that country is really bad. And this is the situation we are in. No one has access to money, and no one can spend money. Therefore, there is nothing to buy because no one is producing, because no one is having money. So we are actually getting into that recession seriously. And I believe CBN is saying the right thing. The hope now is that there will be a resolve to drive that particular process to develop that non-oil sector, the alternative to oil.
Okay, I was just about, we're already being wound up now. I just want to quickly, because you prescribed some of the roles, you're saying that the CBN also needs to do some things. Do you really see those roles is that really the role of the CBN? Should they really be worried about small businesses? Isn't that supposed to be for the ministers of finance and those who will be managing the economy, perhaps agriculture as well?
The MESMES fund, what the Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises Fund, is an intervention fund. And because it is an intervention fund, CBN is lending. They are not giving it as dash money or some kind of political money. They are lending. And it is a fund that is revolving. It is a fund that is non-stop. Because people have often asked the question, is it going to stop because President Buhari is in power? No, because it is about lending. So CBN has got the right to intervene in areas of the economy in terms of intervention, in conjunction with international funding agencies, direct development, and other economies. And what CBN is doing is not only unique to CBN. You will find them in other parts of the world. You find them in Far East, you find them in East Africa, you find them even in Europe. The whole idea of things like credit unions started like this in Europe. It was corruption that drove the world to the world economic problems. And they are addressing that. Now, one of the things they are doing is issues of financial inclusion. We're addressing our own, and I think financial inclusion should also be very, very fundamental. And CBN has the right to do that. Now, the issue is whether CBN is going to follow through with its assessment of the bottom-up approach and directly affect the rights of the people. Now, the problem they have had is the version of truth, the single version of truth that this person that I'm going to support, whether from international fund or from the domestic fund, is truly, one, a human being. Number two, they are doing what they say they are doing. And I think we have found solution to that particular problem. Not only is there a single version of truth database, there is even cooperative ATM cards. There is even, the cooperatives are trying to set up their own national cooperative bank in order to address those issues. So there's no reason why CBN should say there is no way to channel this, or they cannot establish a single version of truth anymore. So they can drive that particular process, and Nigeria is going to really change from bottom up.
All right, we got to go. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Abdallah Yakub, a development consultant. We appreciate your time with us today.
Appreciate you as well. Thank you for your time.